Hello, my beautiful friends, my beautiful fellow soul travelers and space blobs and sparkly blobs. We have a partial lunar eclipse in Pisces that I think was just made for the sensitive spirits of this world to help us feel connected, to help us feel loved, to help us feel that we belong, to help us feel that our sense of wild dreaming is important. And I'm honestly really excited about the beautiful wild medicine of this eclipse season. We are working with two eclipses this season. The first is a Pisces partial lunar eclipse that we're going to be talking about today and really setting us up for a rich, spiritual, connected, wild dreaming time. And then that's going to be followed up with the Libra solar eclipse happening on October 2nd into the 3rd. And this is an eclipse season that is about great sight. It is all about seeing. And I don't mean with our eyes. I mean with our energy, with our spirits, with our souls, with our knowing, with our intuition, with a sense of being able to discern what's really, really important as we open up the next 6 months, and being able to see clearly what is not important any longer, what we don't need to focus on anymore, and coming back to some of the things that are really important inside of ourselves. Both of these eclipses have themes around witnessing, intuition, discernment, vision, bringing vision into life. The first eclipse here that we'll talk about today is going to be about holding the energetic vision from the great spiritual expanse and our connection to that. But then we'll move into the Libra solar eclipse, which is going to be about decisive knowing and bringing that vision into the world and using our clear-sightedness in the world to move forward. And that knowing and that witnessing and that holding of the vision is so important. Before we get into the main conversation for this lunar eclipse in Pisces, I just want to say that this conversation is designed and meant to be grounding, supportive, clarifying. I hope that if you're somebody who feels like you're getting away with something when you're being dreamy or when you're working in a different way, that this conversation will help you feel a little bit like you're not just doing things off or in a wrong way, and that you can come back home to yourself. I find it really important for eclipse seasons, which happen every 6 months, so we're working with this very, very regularly in our lives, that we set ourselves up to feel safe to move through them, because they are safe, because they are natural, because they are part of the rhythm of our little solar system here. And it's supposed to just be a part of coming home. And I want to set us up every single time we come back through eclipse season to feel completely at ease, to relax our way through this time and feel we can commune with ourselves and those around us and our communities in a meaningful way. So if you are looking for a very centered, powerful, energetic chat that feels like coming home, this is going to be the space for you. Let us get into these deep themes as we move through our first eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse in Pisces. This lunar eclipse is really unique and powerful because it is working really closely with Neptune. We have the lunar eclipse happening at 25 degrees of Pisces and Neptune is at 28 degrees of Pisces, so they're just a few degrees apart. Neptune rules Pisces, and this is just the most watery, intuitive energy we can work with. Pisces is the 12th sign. It's connected to the world of dissolving into the greater whole, the world of fantasy, the world of vision, the world of energetics. I often connect it to that other beautiful place that many of us sensitives are always longing to reconnect to. And Neptune is also very deeply tied to so many of these themes, the oceanic wisdom, the dissolving into the greater whole, as well as themes of fantasy and vision and the fantastical. And we're going to come back around to that conversation in just a moment. But one of the first things I want to note here about this particular Pisces lunar eclipse, this eclipse season is interesting because it's a hybrid eclipse season. We have got this first eclipse in Pisces and our second eclipse in Libra. And this is a nod to where the nodes are doing their work. And this first lunar eclipse is a nod to when the North Node moves into Pisces in January. So we're getting our first hint of what the 18 months of the North Node in Pisces is going to feel like, starting in January and going till July 26th, 2026. The themes of that North Node are going to be so beautiful. They have a lot to do with building trust in larger visions, in building trust in the energetics of things, in releasing shame, guilt, judgment around this have to get it all done culture that has been so prominent over the last 20 years with the rise of technology and efficiency, and therefore needing to fill our time in this really intense way. So this first lunar eclipse is nodding to that. Where do we feel shame and guilt for not doing enough, not getting enough done, not pursuing our goals fast enough, not pushing and forcing ourselves to do all sorts of things? How does that feel in our bodies? How is that affecting the way that we treat ourselves in the day-to-day? This is a really great time to also just sit in that beautiful oceanic energy of Neptune, of Pisces, of a moon, a full moon, a lunar eclipse in Pisces, allowing those waves to lap up and show us something really important about our intuition, about our spirits, and about remembering what's really important in living this life. For each of us, that's going to be different ingredients, but each of us is going to have, I think, really strong visions of that. And a lunar eclipse is setting us up for the next 6 months. It's also helping us to release the last 6 months and just think about what we really want to carry forward with us when it comes to how we trust ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, the cosmology that we tell about ourselves, about our connection to the divine, to spirit, and how we connect with that. Now, I wanted to come back around, though, to this idea both of Pisces and of Neptune as being connected to this fantasy world, because one of the things that you'll often see described in astrological discussions of both of these archetypes and placements is that they are tied to this fantasy world. And that fantasy world can be a really dark, messed up place where we are addicted to things, or we're just being an escapist, or we're using that to just survive. First of all, that's problematic for a lot of reasons, because if anybody is needing to move through escapism in any form, that is the canary in the mine. Something is off with the way this world runs, the way this world works. And we need to be looking at that a lot more than an individual who is working with some escapist tendencies. And I think that's a really big problem in the language that you'll see described when we're talking about Neptune or Pisces, especially Neptune. But there's also this side where it's like, oh, you can't just live in fantasy worlds all the time. That is embarrassing. You know, sometimes when I hear descriptions of especially Neptune and its connection to things like Hollywood and illusion and being tricked by people and people putting up smoke and mirrors and you thinking it's real. And of course, that is a real shadow to this world, especially in the era of filters and video editing and photo editing. What are we even looking at that's real? Of course, that is something that we're all grappling with, I think, like how to have an authentic life and feel connected and not just feel like we're running around in a hall of mirrors and illusions as we flip through our phones. That's all valid. We can just like put that there and just say, yes, that is there. But on the other hand, I know in this community and in this space, I spent a lot of time talking to fellow sensitives, and a lot of us have been shamed for our fantasy worlds and told they cannot exist. But what's really fascinating to me is that the word fantasy is derived from a Greek word that means a Greek root that means to make visible, to show, to make appear. And I think that is fascinating, because one of the important things with this conjunction with Neptune and this lunar eclipse and this Piscean oceanic wisdom is that without our visions, without our fantasies without being able to hold a vision of a world we want to live in that maybe has more compassion, more justice, more care for others, more awareness about how we've built structures that are hurting most people, we cannot build it. And when we feel disallowed to hold visions long enough in our body, for them to feel possible, for them to help us feel peace, for them to help our bodies feel safe, we cannot take steps forward. So for me, when I think about the word fantasy, I think about this idea of to make visible, to hold vision, to show, to reveal. And I think about this lunar eclipse, and I think so many of us need that permission to hold these beautiful visions for long enough to really feel that we can taste and touch them. And that another interesting thing that comes up when we're talking about Pisces is that it's often connected to themes, and the 12th house and all of that energy is often connected to themes of places where we put people. Culture puts people, society puts people, systems put people that don't fit. So prisons and mental health institutes and things like that, where we don't see these people because they can't be a part of the public front, right? And I think that's really fascinating. Once again, it's like astrology itself is kind of showing its hand, at least the field, about how it's influenced by the society that is writing the astrological narratives. Because why are certain people put out of sight? Because they are canaries in the mind. They are telling us something really important about what is lacking in our world and what needs energy. And a lot of times this is a symptom of a world cut off from its ability to connect healthily with Piscean and Neptunian wisdom on a regular basis that allows it to constantly renew and refill and allow us to feel connected to something. And that disallowing of it has disempowered so many sensitives and people who do not fit the standard model. And because it's been disallowed, I think it's also very much reflected in the way our world looks now. And even the way fantasy is used now, it is about escapism. It is about hiding from ourselves. And it is about, people waving of hands over here. So we're looking at this and we're not feeling connected to ourselves. And so I think that's what's really going on. And my point here with all of this conversation about this lunar eclipse conjunct Neptune and all of this watery, amazing, intuitive Mother Ocean wisdom is that I really want us to feel empowered to hold the visions we hold dear. What vision needs your attention during this eclipse season, during the end of this Virgo season, as we move through these moon cycles? What can no longer be ignored? And allowing the psychic power of this lunar eclipse to move with us. What visions want to be fully seen and come forward? Where do we want to give ourselves permission to hold that energy and vision long enough to really feel it at like a cellular level? What visions do we need to hold long enough to feel that they can be real in this world? What visions of community, what visions of well-being, what visions of care for others, what visions of peace do we need to hold? It's going to get me emotional thinking about it. You feel that? Really, really powerful stuff. I want the sensitives to be able to reclaim that beautiful magic. I have one final theme that I wanted to explore with you all before we get into our intuitive tarot reading, and that is a sextile with Uranus over in Taurus. Eclipse seasons are inherently about change and transformation and just kind of like an energetic shift over point. And of course, a lunar eclipse is going to be about this kind of renewal when it comes to our energetic and emotional selves, and kind of a beautiful dip into the dark to come out to the light moment, kind of going into a ritual bath underground that we then come up through. And so Uranus, the agent of change, the agent of transition, been working so long in Taurus at this point, 6 years of Uranus in Taurus. It's a playful sextile here. It's one that is really about processing how our dreams and our visions have changed. Some of the visions I think that we're going to be holding during this lunar eclipse might be a little bit different from visions we've been holding even a month ago or 3 months ago, and may even be a little bit surprising, may even be a little bit like, whoa, I didn't know I wanted that ingredient. No, I didn't know that this ingredient would mean so much to me. And I love that there's this little playful element of surprise and changing it up and embracing that what we thought we needed to do maybe a few months ago, and now it's changed again, because it's always changing. We're always changing. And this is a very mutable lunar eclipse. Piscean energy is all about, not holding one static form. So I think a lot of us through this eclipse season are going to be understanding ourselves in completely different ways and what we're really called to do. I have been feeling the opening of this eclipse season really, really powerfully so far. And it's been this emotional opening. So it's been really interesting to sit down today and just feel through this oceanic wisdom and reclaim Neptunian wisdom as a place of deep, deep empowerment and connection that allows for envisioning a beautiful world. Fully lets us imagine it. The Tower came out in this reading, which of course it did. I mean, we do have a sextile with Uranus, so you got to have a little fun with the deconstructing the foundations, and old, outdated foundations. Also, eclipse season is about changing it up. And you know what I love about that? Remember at the beginning of this chat, I was like, this is going to be a really grounding, centering chat, so you can feel clear and empowered to hold your vision and feel safe to move through this eclipse season. And we're going to do the same thing with the Tower. It needs destigmatization. It needs its space and conversations without feeling like we have to feel like our nervous system jump out of our skin. It's really helpful. So let's see. And the Tower, I always say, in context is very important. So let's see what the context is. Queen of Pentacles. There you go. That tells me a lot. Look at these two together. This is a centered knowing right there. I'm going to pull one more card because why not? It's eclipse season. We can't be skimping on our conversations and our time together. And Two of Wands, visionary. This is such a visionary card. I haven't seen that in a reading for a while now. If you've been with me for a little while, you know that when the Tower comes up, we always have a really great conversation. And I feel so inspired by this image and this energy and this archetype. This is a card of breaking free, of foundational elements that have become imprisoning. And a lot of times this card comes at a time when a belief that we've had about ourselves, and like this happens when we're in therapy or we've done some really interesting meditations or traveled, it'll be at these moments where we'll realize we've been holding a belief about ourselves since we were 8 or something, and that it doesn't hold any water. And suddenly the whole world breaks open. I think the Tower often works this way throughout our lives, where there is a moment of breakthrough, quite literally breaking through an old established pattern. This whole chat, I've been talking about holding the vision and being able to use sight, the sight of soul, to break into a new world, to open a new world. And what I see with the Tower here is that very thing. Many of the times that we are envisioning and holding a vision long enough of something beautiful, a sense of community, a sense of caring for ourselves and the vulnerable around us that we see ourselves in and who we can relate to so deeply, or however that comes through in our visions, is about breaking apart an old foundation that cannot hold water. And a lot of times when we're working with really holding vision, like really the most expansive vision, we are going to be breaking the rules of a foundation that was set up that is problematic and isn't working for us anymore. And it might feel uncomfortable. It might feel strange. And I think that's really what this Tower is speaking to. Sometimes holding the truest visions will feel like we are breaking out of an old established thing. It could feel uncomfortable. It could feel like we're breaking rules. It could feel like we're disappointing people, but that is really where some of the best stuff tends to brew. And then we have two very calm, centered figures to follow that dynamic, wild energy with. Both of these figures are sitting still, listening in. The Queen of Pentacles is looking a little bit more inward. She's holding her kind of intuitive pentacle here and kind of ruminating as she looks down at her lap and kind of is looking into her gut center. You know, Virgo, we are in Virgo season. It's all related to our gut intuition, and she's really doing that. She's listening to her gut intuition. A message that also comes up with Queen of Pentacles that I really have always loved is that this is a card that says, for whatever situation arises as you keep living life, you will have what you need. You will know what you need to do. You will know what next step to take, that you can build a deep sense of trust in that. And it's a reminder to spend a little time this eclipse season building that self-trust in yourself. Because there's a lot of stuff we don't know how it's going to look in 6 months. You know, the next 6 months, some things we know, a lot of things we don't. So building that self-trust is really important. But she's also holding that cherished, beautiful vision here in her core, in her center. And we are working with the sun in Virgo, right? And this Queen of Pentacles is very Virgo energy. We're grounding in a truth about ourselves and what matters and what visions are coming in and what supports our bodies and what supports our nervous system and what supports ourselves, what foundationally feels true. So while the Tower is about breaking what foundationally does not feel true, the Queen of Pentacles is about what foundationally feels true. And I want to finish here with Two of Wands because I just love this. I've always seen the Two of Wands as a figure. This is a figure standing in a doorway to a world he has not entered yet, but he is dreaming and he is visioning and he realizes there's this whole world of images and visions out there, and he's just standing in that doorway and allowing that vision to build and allowing that quiet moment. He doesn't have the ingredients, doesn't know when they're coming, doesn't know what it's actually going to look like, but is holding that vision in the quiet, even if he can't see it all right now. And I just love that we're ending on that note. This month, very soon here, just after this first eclipse, we are beginning our journey through the minor arcana over on my Patreon. And I am diving deep. What we're doing there, I think, is really empowering. It's going to be all about building our intuition and our sense of self-trust. It's also going to be about getting to know the wild rhythms of what it means to live a life rather than this kind of static, linear, have to get it done in this way. So much of our culture has taught us there's only one way to exist and do things. And my work really with the minor arcana is, yes, building the tarot practices, yes, feeling more confident with tarot and taking apart some of those archetypes, but it's also about acknowledging expansion, contraction, grief, followed by joy, and being able to feel multiple emotions all at once, navigating the fog, navigating different intuitive lenses, understanding that we are going to constantly be in these kind of wave patterns that have nothing to do with a linear straight line of living. So feeling safe to live in our own unique rhythms that might seem strange to our more traditional family members or the old structures that be, but that are really natural to each of us. And my goal in moving through the minor arcana is little by little to unlock each of our unique rhythms and to feel really safe to just follow that a little bit more in our lives. So I am really looking forward to going through that 12-week journey with you. I really highly recommend checking out my Patreon. I personally really purposely made it very affordable so that more people could access those resources. I also have an upper tier that meets on Zoom once a month, and we are going to be exploring our natal charts a little bit, as well as the energetics that are moving through currently, and getting to talk about that together and feel empowered to tell our stories through archetypes in ways that feel really good. So I'm so proud of the resources I am making over there to give to you all. I'm also going to be coming up with some really great journaling practices for things like Pluto's final move into Aquarius, the Mars retrograde coming up at the end of the year. So we have so much good stuff coming up over there. I really highly recommend joining me. I will see you back here because we've got another eclipse coming up very soon and a whole bunch of topics in between that. So be sure to like, subscribe, and stick around. I know it sounds so cheesy to hear YouTubers say that, but it does mean a lot to me. And I do love it having you here. I love having my sensitive beings with me in this space. It means the world. Have a gorgeous Pisces lunar eclipse. You get to hold your vision, and I am here for it. So I will see you back here very soon.